University of Illinois at Chicago for this very special day. We have a very full schedule, but I'm confident that it will also be an extremely enlightening time for all of us. My name is Father Patrick Marshall. I'm the director of the John Paul II Newman Center here at UIC. And this conference is co-sponsored by the Newman Center, the Chicago Catholic Physicians Guild, the UIC Catholic Studies Program, the UIC Student Coalition for Life, and the UIC Catholic Medical Student Association. We're very pleased and honored to have with us today the Chancellor of the University of Illinois at Chicago, Sylvia Manning, who would like to officially welcome you.
Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to greet Cardinal Francis George and all the other distinguished guests who are with us today. I know that many of you are UIC folks and many of you are not. So just for those of you who are not, let me just give you a quick sketch of who we are. UIC is 26,000 students and 12,000 faculty and staff, which actually makes us the 19th largest employer in Chicago. We're also among the most diverse universities in the nation. U.S. News ranks us 4th. I don't know about any of those rankings, but I do know that among our student body, there is no single group, racial or ethnic group, that holds a majority of the students. We're a research institution, and a lot of research that we do is in the biomedical areas. And in fact, all our recent construction, I realized this morning, has been for research in medicine and biology. It's all on this side of the campus, and it ranges from the College of Medicine Research Building, which is what makes the road coming up here impossible to pass, to a new MRI facility, which will be opening in a few months, and which will have the most powerful MRI in the world capable of treating an entire human body. And of course, we are also dedicated to patient care. We have 6 health sciences colleges, but we are also the state's largest public health science center. And every year, our staff, physicians, and dentists treat over 600,000 patient visitors. We also see ourselves as training the health professionals for Illinois. 1 out of 6 doctors, 1 out of 3 physicians, 1 out of 3 pharmacists in Illinois is a UIC graduate. And 70% of the minority physicians in Chicago are UIC graduates. It is the largest college of medicine in the country, and partly for that reason, it ranks every year among the top 3 schools in the country in the production of minority physicians. We do this partly through an urban healthcare program, which seeks to recruit and retain minority students for the health professions area. The program began in 1979, and it has graduated over 3,300 students since then. And then finally, as one other touch that makes us stand out a bit, our College of Applied Health Sciences offers the only PhD degree in disability studies in the nation. So what does that all add up to? I think it adds up to the fact that we are very, very deeply involved in both research, teaching, and above all, patient care in all the biomedical science and health science areas. And as we do that, as we engage in that, it's very important for us also to engage in the questions of ethics, morality, and the subject of this conference, human dignity. And for that reason, I want to express my thanks to the Newman Center for holding this conference on our campus, and to wish you a very productive day. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Manning. We are also very grateful and honored to have the Archbishop of Chicago, Francis Cardinal George, who will join us and welcome us to the conference today. Your Eminence.
Marshall. Thank all of you for being here. Last year, I think I took about 6 minutes to welcome people and to comment on the snow that was on the ground, and then to say that this is an invitation to dialogue, and to mention the importance of dialogue between science and religion, between moral theology and bioethics. And then I left, and it was reported in the papers that everything practically that anybody else said the rest of the day was attributed to me. And so I got phone calls for months afterwards saying, why did you say this and why did you say that? And I kept saying, I said nothing except to invite people to talk. So this year I welcome everyone again to the Archdiocese of Chicago, those of you who aren't here, and I'm very grateful for Chancellor Manning's welcome to the university. I'll not comment on the snow, and I will invite to dialogue, but I want to say something more definite, more positive about the kind of dialogue that we're invited to, and that undergirds, I think, the discussions of the day. The dialogue is based, I believe, in some philosophical differences, quite apart from the science and the discussion about what is true for bioethics and what is fact from its technologies. There are some different understandings of the person, the human person, that lie in back of much of the dialogue that is going to be exchanged today. Much of the importance of this institute is precisely to try to bring into a great university setting a view of the human person that is either opposed or ignored or unacknowledged, so that there can be a dialogue. And the dialogue between at least two of the possibilities of establishing or understanding what it means to be a human person shapes up, I believe, between those on the one hand who understand that an individual is established by choices rooted in will, and therefore that moral autonomy is the governing rubric for the ethical background to discussions about biomedical advances. And people who would, and I count myself among them, say that no, the person is established, first of all, in a network of relations which are given by nature and by God, relations which are discovered through the moral activity that we undertake as we grow older, relations therefore that are grown into during an entire lifetime of freeing oneself from selfishness in order to become ever more generous and self-giving, no matter the risks involved in that kind of self-giving, even to the point of self-sacrifice. The relationship, therefore, between the dignity of human persons, no matter how that dignity is established, and advances in biomedical science, which are going to be the subject of the dialogue today, turn to a great extent on a point that often isn't understood, I believe, or isn't very well appreciated, and that is the relationship between freedom and truth. We advance the discussion in terms of truth, which becomes normative and important to us to the extent that we understand something about the world, and we understand therefore how to shape it technologically. But that truth doesn't necessarily, or shouldn't, limit our freedoms. And in fact, in the context of our discussions, not only about bioethics, but in many other areas, certain truths, or certainty about truths, are a threat to personal subjective freedom. And yet, without knowing the truth about ourselves, there is no sense in which we are free to make choices. There is no sense in which we can be fully free precisely as human persons, which is why wisdom for the Greeks began with knowing yourself. In other words, what I'm saying is that it isn't enough to know the truth about things as if truth were just regulatory. We must also recognize that truth is perfective of the human person. A person who knows the truth is a better person than one who doesn't, whether simply through ignorance or through not wanting to look at certain questions. And without this sense that truth as perfective of the human person, we can't understand that connection between freedom and truth. The truths have to be also not only about things, but self-reflective, involving the truth seeker, himself or herself. Let me make a philosophical argument here, just for a few moments, if you pardon my doing so, because it's important in the sense that too often that connection, as I say, between freedom and truth, when you start to make it, eyes glaze over and people feel that it's a detour from the matter at hand. But it never is, because otherwise we don't understand how it is that we are to be genuinely true, genuinely free. We can't understand how we're free unless we understand who we truly are. It's a false freedom without that. And furthermore, that question of who we are, the question of self-knowledge, is not just an empirical one. How do we come to appear on the scene? There are theories for that, and all of them deserve attention. But it's not just an empirical question, nor is it simply a historical question. Where have we come from? Nor is it a technical question. What are we able to do? Sciences and technology offer many answers, fine answers to these questions, and we must attend to them. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond ethics as well. What ought I to do doesn't of itself answer the question, who am I? This is a philosophical and anthropological question which begins with the kind of wonder that established philosophy when human reason first began to reflect upon the world and upon what it meant to be human within the world, and continues through philosophy, through religious thought. Freedom stands at the beginning of this journey of self-discovery, because if we weren't somehow distant from our environment, there is no way in which we could raise the kind of questions that are the nature of your dialogue this morning and are the nature of the discussion that founds a great university such as this. By its very nature, this discovery has value. It is perfective of the person who is so moved to make inquiry and who responds to the invitation given by reality itself into a fuller self-disclosure and self-discovery of who we truly are. The sense of self-discovery tells us how truth has a value for us. It is a good for us. While the truth value of my statements are measured by the disclosure of the real situation in which we live, if I choose to lie or to be deliberately ignorant of the situation, that too shapes the situation, and it certainly shapes myself in it. It's very true, especially I believe, of painful truths about myself, that I try to avoid them. I'm lazy or I'm inconsiderate. I have failed to do something important for a friend, perhaps a friend who has now passed away, or when an unwelcome diagnosis forces me to acknowledge the imminent inevitability of my own death. It forces me, and yet we're not forced, are we, in the way natural phenomena are forced, the way a lighted match forces gasoline. Rather, I am free before those kind of self-revelations, and it takes a certain courage to push away all the evasions that I might try to make and to simply face the pain of the situation. That is the work of freedom. And if I have the courage to face such painful situations, I feel a certain satisfaction or liberation, even a certain received fullness or perfection or completeness, even in the midst of that pain. So truth is not simply normative or regulative. It is perfective of my very being as a human person. The truth sets us free, as Jesus said, and I cannot overemphasize that, I think, at the beginning of a dialogue such as this morning, nor in my ordinary work as I go about my tasks. Why can I say that, though? And here again, let me make a philosophical argument. There is a dynamism at the center of my and every human person's life that, in fact, doesn't follow the laws of physical motion. And that's important, particularly as biology tries to conform itself to the hard sciences, and yet it is concerned about human bodies, at least when you get into ethics. But there is a whole dimension to being embodied that clearly goes beyond the laws of physical motion, a center of our being which has traditionally been called and truly deserves the name of spirit. We're so familiar with our spiritual being that we easily overlook it, but it is readily at hand in our everyday life. It doesn't depend upon faith, and it doesn't depend upon great esoteric argument. Most of you were engaged in conversation with others before you came into this hall. You exchanged ideas, you found out what people were doing, you renewed acquaintances, or you made new ones. You grew animated, you drew upon, therefore, your store of physical energy, as I'm doing standing before you right now. But no matter how enthusiastic you became, eventually you would grow tired. The physical energy would be depleted. But in fact, something else as well is going on in that kind of conversation. And it's amazing that even in great universities, that isn't often enough attended to. We all know that when we convert, something else is happening, when we converse rather, something else is happening besides the physical loss of energy. Speaking with precision and attending to the proper character of the conversation, the exchange of ideas is not at all a physical transaction in which energy passes from one talker to another listener waiting to talk. It's not the same kind of transactions when you push away a heavy weight, or you take a car out of the mud, or you spend your morning shoveling the snow. Then you do lose energy as you transfer physical power from yourself to the object which is the center of your attention. But in exchanging ideas with a friend, you don't lose your ideas. You're engaging in communication without loss. The schoolmen drew attention to this feature of knowing, calling it an immanent operation, an indwelling activity, one which remains in the knower, even though there is an exchange. The wonder, however, is that while it does remain within the knower, it is also passed on to another and becomes present to and in the friend you're speaking to the degree to which you've been clear and your friend has been attentive. This is a law of the spiritual activity of knowing and communicating that is immediately available to our experience if we attend to it. But there's still more to be gleaned from this ordinary activity in coming to know who we are. In coming to know who we are so we can be free in our very being as we are created to be free. The philosopher Hegel noted that consciousness has the capability of going out to the other, of identifying with another and returning to oneself, all the while retaining your own identity. All of this without loss. In going out to the object in the act of recognizing it and understanding it, however superficially or partially or inadequately, the mind doesn't intrude upon the other, remains what it is. Knowing, as distinct from mere thinking, occurs only when in fact we are present to the thing as it really is. And here we can only wonder all the more, for we see that we have here a relationship, for example, to this room and to the objects in it, which is different from the physical relationship by which the chair adjusts itself to your weight, or we bump into tables or fall on the floor. We too easily think of our knowledge of the room as putting images and ideas in our heads. It is true that we do retain residual ideas and images in memory once we have left this or any other room. But in actually knowing something, we do not put ideas in our heads as though we are placing pictures in a miniature gallery. Rather, our actual knowing of the room puts us into the room in a non-physical way. I'm already in the room physically in my body. If I am once again in the room in my being aware of it, then that is a different form of presence in and to the room. And this too should give us pause as we ask, who are we? Who truly are we? Because without answering that question, we cannot be free. Insofar as we know the objects in this room in some fashion, we don't really put them into our heads. On the contrary, we are cast out into the room in a new, distinct, and wondrous way. For insofar as we know the objects, we don't bump into them in our heads, or we don't upset tables in thinking upon them, or press down on seat cushions, but we are truly present to them. The wonder, therefore, of knowing and the way in which the operation of knowing itself discloses something about ourselves, so we come to the self-knowledge, in coming to know anything scientifically. We come to know also ourselves in a new way, and that is a perfection of my being which enables me to be free and not simply another object in this room. Our knowing is therefore not governed by the justly famous 3 laws of physics. Knowing is immanent in the person, it's non-invasive in the thing known, and it comes about by our submitting ourselves in mind to the way that things really are. The value of truth governs our knowing. Even painful truth is a certain enrichment, therefore. It's better to know the truth than not to know it. It's more perfective of the human being. And in knowing myself, even when it's painful, then only can I be said to be free. Truth is not only normative. It's that for everyone on this campus. It is also perfective. In the very center of the human person, therefore, the spiritual source that is governed and perfected by truth, we come upon the secret of human freedom and the bond between freedom and truth. And that is why truth has the power to convict us and to attract us. Truth opens us up to ourselves, to others, and of course, to our world, to the realm of biomedicine. Truth is this power that draws us out of the deadening passivity which would be ours without the medium of spiritual existence and genuinely personal life, the life of freedom. I make that point, as I say, because it is so often lost, not only in scientific discussions in the strict sense, but even in dialogue such as this. If we are going to come to a dialogue, we have to clarify the basis of who is dialoguing, so that we can know the truth, and the truth will set us free. The last word about our social situation today, I think, for me at least, it is a troubling paradox that both freedom and the human dignity which underwrites our freedom should be threatened as they are in a society which is a functioning democracy, functioning well in some places, less well other places, but nonetheless truly a democracy. In fact, human dignity is at risk from, and there I quote Leon Cass from that other university, human dignity is at risk from an alliance between democracy and ethical relativism, which removes any stable moral reference point from political and social life. Relativism in the sense that no truth truly is possible, at least about what it means to be a human person, and which challenges our self-understanding as creatures of dignity, rendering us incapable of recognizing dangers to our humanity. These are dangers that arise from a reductive science that puts enormous power into our hands, but which leaves us without common meaning and purpose, and which fails to represent the organic human body itself as it is in truth, animated, purposive, striving. With these few words of introduction, which I do take responsibility for, I thank very much the Integritas Institute and the distinguished panel of speakers that have assembled here for giving us this occasion to face and respond to the challenge of our situation and to know who we are more deeply and coming to know the world more thoroughly, and therefore coming to a greater appreciation of our freedom. Most of all, finally, I offer gratitude to Chancellor Sylvia Manning and the University of Illinois Chicago for hosting this conference. Thank you. God bless you.